Ooh, this one weighs a ton. I hope it's food and not wine bottles. People said, you know, the way you live is pretty cool.
Meet John Starnes, urban farmer and dumpster diver extraordinaire. A Tampa, Florida resident and garden columnist, Starnes lives as sustainable as possible. Through dumpster diving, growing and raising the majority of his food, obsessively conserving water, and relying primarily on discards for his art and landscape projects. He provides the community with weekend gardening and urban farming classes from his South Tampa home.
I know what it's like to open up the fridge or a cupboard and there's nothing in there. I've known hunger quite a few times in my life. And I'm not Christian, but I now understand why Christians will say, and I used to think it was going to be, well, you'll see, like, thank you, Jesus, spontaneously. I say several times a day out loud, thank you, universe. And in my mind, it's a capital U. Because I open the fridge, there's always food in there. I open the cupboard, there's always food in there. I'll come in with a basket of food from the yard, and I'll say out loud, thank you, universe. And I go, oh, this is why Christians do that. Because I used to think it was so corny. It's, oh, thank you, Jesus. And to me, that it took people like my friend who have no idea what it's like to, one of the reasons I became a very good dumpster driver in Denver is in February, with no landscaping income coming in, my newsletter losing money. If I bought groceries, I would not have the house payment, or I would not have the electricity. And so I became, as gross as it sounds, very good at dumpster diving for food at grocery stores. And in Denver, it's a refrigerator outdoors half the year anyway, and I ate like a king from those dumpsters. I knew that each day at 4:30, this one you save, all their food that expired at midnight went out. And I'd come home with cases of Tropicana orange juice, Dannon yogurt. One time I got a whole case of frozen lobster tails. And to me, had I been like my rich friend, I just, I actually kind of treasure those memories. It was not fun pawing through icy, cold, wet trash in the wintertime, my fingers all numb, but there was like 27 pounds of cheese down there. By the time I was a young adult, I was very much a fear-based person. What are people going to think of me? Just fear-based. I was afraid to leave home. I was afraid to quit a job. I always did what I wanted to do, but I would always have to push through a barrier of fear first.
Desperate need for something green to hold me to my rails. A tale, I'll tell, it's true. A tale, I'll tell to you. Kissing goes, the last it shows, it holds me to my thoughts. A box I can't seem to hold on to. And oh, the seasons, do they go among the finer things
When I hit my early 30s, I was getting a little bit better, and I wrote this poem consciously to cultivate in me, as the guy who wrote it, the idea of not living your life based on fear. And people say it's the best poem I ever wrote. I think it is too. Caterpillars, this is me speaking as a garden columnist who's gotten thousands of emails from my readers in both columns. Caterpillars, especially here in Florida, are one of the things that makes somebody who intended to be organic, who was hell-bent on being organic, cave in and come home with a pesticide because they see their crops being destroyed before their eyes.
I just told that at a nursery just this week, because I said I want to stay organic, and I was looking for a one-stop shopping kind of location, and they said, well, what about the caterpillars?
If you go to a feed store, you will see a shelf with countless bags that are green with a yellow label, including scary pesticides. This is a bacterial product. What it does is it kills caterpillars of any and all kinds, but only caterpillars. So if you have a butterfly garden, keep it the hell away from your butterfly garden. This is the only product I know of, and I'm not just this brand, but this fish, I'm going to put it this way, fish emulsion made from seagoing fish is the only product I know of that in one container contains every single freaking plant nutrient. Miracle-Gro leaves them out, Osmocote leaves them out, Dynamate leaves out trace elements, Kirby's leaves them out. They're all I consider those like crack cocaine for plants. They give the plant a jolt, but there's so much missing that they can't sustain them. Here's the 3 things that people do wrong with seeds, and that makes them say, oh, I suck with seeds. A, they don't keep them in the fridge. The second thing they do is they plant them too deep. This is one of the weirdest things I ever found. I was dumpster diving at Dollar Tree a couple years ago, and I was reaching for something, and I pushed the box out of the way, and all of a sudden hundreds of these. It's like having a genuine flashback. Here's why I have the glowing eyeball. And when I give you your brassica seeds, you'll see how tiny they are. When people say, well, how am I going to know how deep to plant my seeds? You know, how deep? People say, like, well, how deep do I plant corn? How deep? You don't memorize 17,000 planting depths. What you do is this. Okay, look at the eyeball. You look at the biggest dimension of the seed. You double that. That's how much dirt goes on top of the seed. The third thing that people do wrong is they don't hand water the seed daily for 2 weeks. Get yourself a watering wand, something that makes a gentle spray. Hand water briefly. You don't have to stand there and soak it, but hand water daily. Is the water-wise container gardening concept, which I teach separate classes about. All it is any watertight container, be it a 5-gallon bucket like I grow my tomatoes and Molokai in, baby pools, big lot storage tubs that I dumpster dive.
Right.
I just scavenged these white barrels from a neighborhood cleanup a neighbor threw out. I don't know if you can see, but the drainage holes are on the sides, 3 inches from the bottom. That concept is a game changer that I wish I would have thought of 20 years ago. Beneath the kitchen sink is a standard Bill Mollison-inspired permaculture urban farmsteading thing. I was overflowing the bucket several times a day because all my life the water simply vanished unseen down the drain. And when you start quantifying your gray water catchment, all of a sudden you see how much water you waste. I dump it into this bucket here on the kitchen floor, this 5-gallon, actually that's a 7, and I carry that to where it's needed. And right now my citrus are screaming for water. Stand in that,
Right.
heat the water there, and I've discovered is 1 gallon of water, if I lather up my head first, and to work it down is more than adequate. And I just met somebody from India, and he says, well, of course, in India we only use a gallon. I stand in this tray, I capture the water, and then I take it generally to a potted rose.
Right.
And so because I found out that the average American who uses a low flow shower head still uses 11 gallons of water.
Wow.
And plus, since the sun's heating my water, my light bill's gotten even lower.
Right. My
top bar hives are nothing more than some very strong display boxes I got when the Winn-Dixie on Gandy closed. They're basically big wooden boxes, closed on all sides but one. I put them upside down so the open side faces up. By top bar, what I used was simply sections of 2x4, cut, laid side to side across the top with a notch so that the wood stays in place. You'll see videos of people with no gloves, no bee mask, no smoker, taking the top off their top bar hive, gingerly pulling up a 2x4 with huge sections of honeycomb. They whisk the bees off, they cut off the honeycomb. I have minimal costs associated with my chicken raising, but last year I made a fair amount of, say, grocery money selling surplus eggs. And what I'm doing now is, since I have a fertile rooster and I hatch the eggs in the incubator, which I want to show you in my office, is the ones that turn out to be roosters I eat, and the ones that turn out to be girls, when they start laying, I'm selling them for $15 a piece as a laying hen, because many people are finding out that a little baby chick from the feed store is $3.25, and they have a high mortality rate.
Right.
The hen house I made 100% free from dumpster driveway gates many years ago. The purpose of this yard is this big path we're walking around. Is I throw weeds in here, buckets of horse manure, oak leaves, and they scratch through it, poop in it. And in the summertime when it's raining, this whole pathway around the yard is one big compost factory. And this is where I pot most of my plants. I can actually just come out here in the path and dig up compost to pot in.
I took a urban homesteading class with him about 1.5 years ago, and it was just covering all the basics of what you'd want to do to start growing your own food. Right now, we've got lettuce and broccoli and radishes and a few things. I've been digging sweet potatoes for the last month. Pickle a lot of stuff too, and try to can as much as we can when things are actually going well. So it really hurts when you run out of banana peppers and you have to go to the grocery store and buy some, just things like that. But it's been building up, slowly, but we definitely spend a lot less at the grocery store than we used to. Yeah, we got redworms going for the kitchen stuff, but then we also have compost, everything else. Behind you is a pile of the sweet potato vines that are breaking down for the spring. Just don't waste anything. Look something over 2 or 3 times before you throw it away. You see something on the side of the street that looks kind of interesting. I get that chicken tractor thing right there. It's just, I was going to work one day and someone was throwing an old wooden bed frame away. On the way to work, I was like, well, what can I do with that? What can I do with that? And I thought of that, just making a little cage for the chickens to put them in the yard. And on the way home, it was still there, so I grabbed it and brought it home. Threw some chicken wire on it, and it came out like that. So really just taking a look at everything, especially things that I'm getting rid of and other people are getting rid of, and try to put them to use. And just don't waste any energy, and that's even just scraps from the kitchen, water, just anything. Put it to use somewhere. Eventually prices are going to go really high, and then there's just going to be big problems. But try to just lead by example a little bit. Just show them that it's possible and it's not such of a mystery. When I was a kid, my parents had a couple gardens, and there was a lot of problems, and that was it. Like, I think 2 seasons, and that was over. A couple of rabbits just put the gardening experiment to an end. And so I kind of always thought it was like, oh, that's pretty hard to do. But it's not, If you have some patience with it and everything, it's pretty easy to do. And I just want him to know that, feel comfortable around it.
I'm really glad for my 15 years of very difficult years in Denver, money problems, it's homesickness, because I realized, 2020 hindsight, I realized it wasn't until I experienced that and got to come home and be in this house before I knew true gratitude. I've been thankful before, for different, but I never had a sense of I just feel immersed in gratitude daily. I wake up, I'm at my house, I'm home, no money problems, money's tight, but no money problems. And it took that trial by fire to have gratitude.